So let's go to Smyrna. Smyrna is still around. This is Izmir. That's what they call it today in Turkey. It's on the kind of the northwest. It'd be like Seattle in America. That's where it is in Turkey, kind of up in the northwest corner of the Asia Minor. But when you're landing in the airport, this is modern Izmir. There's smog. You can see kind of a little smog. When you're coming in the airport, if you're on the correct side of the airplane at the landing, you can see in downtown Izmir this big green with white pillars coming out of it, little spot. You just can glance out of the window. That's the Agora. That's the first, that's where the church of Revelation 2, 8 through 11, would have been familiar. That's a part of the city that was in the Roman times. And of course, it's coastal and everything else. But right there, and we're going to see this spot often. So think about Smyrna in verses 8 to 11. How does God want us to respond to fear? Fear is the most repeated thing we're supposed to watch out for in the Bible. The most. Fear not, fear not. Do not be afraid, fear not. Why? Because fear is Satan's realm. When we operate in fear, we're operating under his motivations, not God's. So how does God want us to respond when we're surrounded by fear, when we're facing pain of all kinds, and we're struggling? Well, the good news is that Paul, the apostle, describes us, all of us who are believers here. One of his great terms for us is soon, that's a preposition in Greek, agonizomai. That's another Greek word. What does it sound like in English? Agonizers. Paul calls us fellow agonizers and soon athletes. Athletes are those that contend and compete and push to win. He said that's what we are. We're fellow strugglers. So by the way, if you're struggling in your Christian life, if everything isn't perfect and you don't just walk around going, oh, everything's great. If it's not great, if you're struggling, Paul said, join the club. That's what all of us are. We're fellow strugglers. Paul said, I'm a struggler, you're a struggler, let's struggle together. And if you're going through pain, he said, we're agonizing together. So it's the Christian life. Well, let's go through the points. Look at verse 8 of chapter 2. And this is what Jesus says to the church. And to the angel, we already covered that, the angelos, the messenger, the star in the hand of Christ, the gift to the church, Paul called pastor, elder, teachers in Ephesians 4. God gave to the church, and so they're a gift. To the angel of the church of Smyrna, verse 8, write. Now, Smyrna is an interesting word. You all know that. It's a word you all know from Christmas. In fact, it was named after something that transported and made there. Myrrh. The city is Smyrna, like myrrh. Gold, frankincense, and what? Came to Christ at his birth. What is myrrh? Well, myrrh speaks of, I use this was the lampstand yesterday. Today it'll be a tree. Myrrh is just an old desert kind of tree that they take a machete and they go whack, whack, whack into the tree and cut through the bark into the actual, cortex cells, whatever you want to say, of the tree. They go in deep enough, and the tree heals its wounds by excreting or exuding or pushing out sap. The same thing in a pine tree. You ever go through a southern forest? So there's pine trees all around here. And you pick up a pine cone or you touch the tree and you get sticky. The tree is exuding and putting out, secreting sap. Well, they force it with the myrrh tree and they go whack, 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 whack. So myrrh is produced by painful suffering, but it symbolizes the embalming. Myrrh was a part of the frankincense and myrrh. Frankincense is an incense. Frank incense and myrrh, an embalming resin. So Jesus, by even saying myrrh, look what he says. To you of Smyrna, which speaks of suffering and being cut up and everything else. See, every name, I told you yesterday, all the letters have a pattern. They all have a specific name church, which correlates with the message Jesus is giving. These things says the first and the last who was dead and came to life. Jesus said, I was dead and alive. They were facing fatal persecutions. Jesus knows what we're facing. And he says, I'm with you. Wow, what a comfort that Christ gives.